Right, okay, what does a preparator do? Well, a preparator prepares fossils, and it's an important job in the fact that if you don't get it right, you can destroy the material you're cleaning. And a lot of really appreciation goes in the fact of what people in the past have done. So all the stuff that's in museums is initially cleaned by a preparator, and of course now, as we advance in science and tooling and everything else, preparation techniques have improved greatly, and you can get some really, really good results. How do you get into it? Well, I don't think there's any courses in Britain on a preparatory course as such. So how did I get into it? The same as most people. They literally drift into it where they're cleaning their own fossil material. And it's a self-teach method, really, in some ways. You start off very, very small with perhaps a hammer and a little sharpened pin to clean down fossils, and then you develop, and we use all sorts of tools, normally run by compressed air. We use air chisels, air pens for really fine work. So we've got some really fine ones for really delicate work, which you can use under a microscope. They're that delicate. We use grinders of all sorts, so small diamond grinders and much, much bigger ones, disc cutters, whatever it takes to actually clean the material. And finally, in some ways, to finish the material off, in most cases here, we use, or I use, an air abrasive. An air abrasive is a tool which is really like a miniature sandblaster. And you put all sorts of air abrasive medium powders in there, and you can put in soft stuff like sodium bicarbonate, which is quite sharp but soft. So when you clean it, it doesn't abrade or noticeably abrade the fossil material. It's very, very gentle. And then we go up to dolomite, which is a slightly more abrasive powder. Aluminium oxide, that's another one, but that's quite cutting. Glass beads, all sorts, walnut dust, even walnut dust, which I never found the use for because it's supposed to be carcinogenic, so it's not the sort of thing I'd like to use, and I've never felt the need for it. But things like iron powder, they put through them as well. So it's all sorts of things we use, and then of course, in preparation as well, you'll use all sorts of glues. Primarily here, most of our glues are what we call super glues, cyanoacrylate glues, in all viscosities. In other words, thick ones, thin ones. We use glues like they're styrene-based glues for actually gluing very big rocks together because they've got the inherent straight to keep them together, or epoxy resins. That's something that we also use. To consolidate the thing, sometimes you've got something that's quite friable and dusty or whatever, and we use a museum-grade consolidant called paraloid, and you can mix that to all viscosities as well. So you can use it as a glue, but we don't use it because I don't think it's that strong, and I don't use it for strengthening wet or dry objects, in point of fact, because it tends to wet rather like water and destroy and blow the sort of clay fragments apart. So I use very thin super glue then to clean or to preserve and to strengthen the fossil, but we can always remove that. So everything we use, or everything I use, including even if I use fiberglass resins to strengthen the back of the block, everything is removable. Now they always say, oh no, it's not removable, these sort of things, but I can guarantee it, anything I use, I can remove, and I had to do it in the past. So there's lots and lots, it can go on and on and on, to plaster of Paris, all PVA glues for really wet objects. So if you've got something like an elephant tusk that actually is quite a friable thing, a fossil one, or a mammoth tusk, you dilute PVA, which is like a wood glue, in water, and actually paint that on, and actually that strengthens it, keeps it from cracking up. All sorts of things that we can use, which is a preparator sort of toolbox in some ways. Here I'm lucky because I've got a very big workshop. You can see there's a big table, got all the tooling, all the lighting, everything else. But most of when I started, was in a very small shed. But you can still get the same results no matter where you are. In point of fact, when I used to aerobrade really large objects, I had to do them outside on a table when it was sunny, and then just use a dust mask. So there's lots and lots of ways of prepping fossils, but it's one of those sciences that never been sort of fully recognised and appreciated what you can achieve with today's modern tooling.